Aubrey was a young girl who lived in a very small house. Her family was poor. They didn't have enough food. Some days they didn't even have bread to eat. Aubrey gave her last piece of bread to her little brother. She stayed hungry, but she didn't cry. What really hurt her heart was something else. She could not speak English. Every morning she would wake up early. The floor under her feet was cold, and there was no warm breakfast waiting for her. She would drink a glass of water and quietly step outside. The streets were busy with people rushing to work. She saw them talking, smiling, laughing, and moving forward in life. But Aubrey felt stuck. She wanted to work. She wanted to help her family. She wanted to buy warm food, good shoes, and maybe even a soft blanket for her little brother. But every time she tried to step into a new place to ask for a job, her heart would beat too fast. Her palms would sweat. She would freeze. She tried many times to get a job. She went to shops and cafes. She waited outside small restaurants. She even walked into a clothing store once. People smiled and said, "Hi, how can I help you?" But Aubrey got scared. She didn't know how to start a conversation. She didn't know what to say, so she stayed quiet. The shop workers looked confused. Some were kind and said, "It's okay, take your time." Others quickly turned away. They had no patience. Sometimes she tried to smile and wave her hands, but that didn't help. She knew a few English words like please, job, me, and thank you. But she didn't know how to put them together, not in a full sentence. Not when people were watching her, not when her heart was full of fear. 3. Shop workers told her, "We'll call you," but they never did. She walked home every day with tired feet and an even more tired heart. Her little brother would ask, "Did you get a job, Aubrey?" She would smile and say, "Maybe tomorrow." But her eyes always looked down. Her mother never said much. She just touched her shoulder softly and gave her half a piece of bread. Aubrey would eat in silence, thinking, "Why is it so hard to speak? Why can't I just say a few words?" At night, she stared at the ceiling. The house was dark. The roof had holes, and when it rained, water dripped through. She held her little brother close to keep him warm. Sometimes she dreamed of working in a beautiful cafe. She would wear a clean apron and serve coffee. She would say things like, "How can I help you today?" or "Have a nice day." And people would smile at her, and she would smile back. But every time she tried to speak in real life, nothing came out. She felt like her voice was locked inside her chest. She remembered her school days. She was a smart girl, but English class was always hard. The teacher spoke fast, and the books were full of big words. She never raised her hand in class. She just sat quietly, hoping the teacher wouldn't call her name. Now she wished she had tried harder. She wished someone had told her that English was not just a subject in school. It was a door to jobs, to friends, to dreams. But no one told her that. No one told her that English could change her life. One day she sat outside a small bakery. The smell of fresh bread made her stomach growl. She had not eaten since the day before. A kind man came out of the shop and gave her a small piece of cake. He said, "Here, have this." She took it with both hands and whispered, "Thank you." The man smiled and said, "You're welcome." Then he walked away. That small moment made her heart feel warm. It was the first time in many days that someone had spoken kindly to her. She held on to that moment. She thought, maybe I can learn to speak. Maybe I can try again. She looked around. So many people were talking, in English. Young girls, old men, children. They laughed, they asked questions, they answered phones. Aubrey thought, they're just people. If they can do it, maybe I can too. She started listening more closely. When someone ordered coffee, she listened to what they said. When kids played in the park, she listened to their games. She tried to repeat their words in her head. She watched TV from the window of a store. She didn't understand everything, but she caught a few words. She repeated them quietly. But still, when she walked into a store, her voice didn't come. It was stuck, and the silence always made her feel small. One evening, she came home and found her brother coughing. He was cold and hungry. Her mother looked worried. Aubrey knew she had to do something. She couldn't wait anymore. She had to try harder, not just for herself, but for her family. She made a decision. She would not give up. The next morning, she woke up early and walked to the public library. She didn't go inside. She just sat outside and looked at the people going in and out. She saw young women carrying books. She saw students talking and smiling. She wished she was one of them. A girl about her age walked out of the library. She had a bright smile and was holding an English book. Aubrey looked at her and thought, she looks like someone who could speak well. The girl looked at Aubrey and smiled. That smile was warm and friendly, just like sunshine on a cold day. She didn't know it yet, but this moment would change everything. It was the beginning of something new, the beginning of courage, the beginning of finding her voice. And with that thought, Aubrey stood up, still unsure, still afraid, but ready to take one more step. What she didn't know was that the girl who just smiled at her was about to give her more than just a book. She was about to give her hope. Aubrey sat on the cold cement bench outside the city library. Her clothes were thin, and the wind was sharp. She had not eaten anything since yesterday morning. Her stomach growled, but she had learned how to stay quiet. She had no money, not even a single coin. But that wasn't what made her feel the most empty. What hurt the most was silence. She had walked into 5 shops that morning trying to ask for work, but when someone said, "Hello, how can I help you?" she froze. Her mouth stayed shut. Her heart beat too fast. She didn't know how to answer in English. She only knew the words in her own language. By the time she thought of the English words, the moment was already gone. The shopkeeper had turned away. It happened again and again. So now, she just sat. Outside, looking at people go in and out of the library. They looked busy with their coffee cups and backpacks. Some were talking on the phone, some were laughing. They all looked like they belonged somewhere. Aubrey felt like she didn't belong anywhere. She pulled her coat tighter and looked down at her shoes. They were old and broken. The toes were wet from a puddle she had stepped in earlier. Her eyes filled with tears, but she wiped them quickly. No one should see her cry. And then she saw a pair of white sneakers stop in front of her. She looked up slowly. It was a girl, maybe her age. The girl had brown curls and a bright red hoodie. She looked happy and full of energy, like someone from a movie. She held 2 books in her hand. Her name was Brielle. "Hey," Brielle said kindly. "Are you okay?" Aubrey looked around, not sure if the question was for her. She pointed to herself and said, "Me?" Brielle nodded, smiling. "Yes, you." Aubrey hesitated. Her voice was low, broken. "No job, no money." Brielle didn't laugh. She didn't act surprised. She just sat down on the bench next to Aubrey and gave her a warm look. "You don't need perfect English," Brielle said gently. "Just start the conversation." Aubrey looked at her, confused but curious. "I used to be like you," Brielle continued. "I came to this city 4 years ago. I couldn't say anything. I cried in the bathroom at school every day. But one day, a kind woman sat beside me and helped me. And now I'm here, helping you." Aubrey couldn't believe her ears. "You not speak English?" "Not at all," Brielle said, laughing a little. "I didn't even know how to say hello in the beginning. But I learned one thing. Don't wait for perfect English. Just begin. Small words, simple words, anything. That's how you grow." Aubrey smiled a little. Her lips trembled. "But I am scared." "I know," Brielle said. "I was too." For a few moments they sat in silence. But it wasn't a heavy silence. It felt light, like maybe something new was beginning. Then, Brielle reached into her small bag and pulled out a paper napkin. She opened it carefully. Inside was a half sandwich, turkey and cheese, still warm. "You haven't eaten, have you?" she asked. Aubrey shook her head slowly. "Here," Brielle said, handing the sandwich over. "I always pack extra. You can have it." Aubrey didn't speak. Her eyes filled with tears again, but this time they didn't come from pain. They came from kindness. She took the sandwich with both hands and said softly, "Thank you." As she ate, Brielle leaned forward and asked, "Do you want to speak English better?" Aubrey nodded quickly. "Yes, very much." "Then I'll show you something," Brielle said. She reached for her notebook and wrote something down. Aubrey watched the pen move. The letters looked neat and clear. When Brielle was done, she showed the paper to her. "These are 3 sentences that help me speak with people," she said. "They're easy. You can use them every day. Want to try?" Aubrey nodded again, mouth still full of sandwich. Brielle smiled wide. "Good. You're brave, Aubrey, and I promise, it only gets easier from here." And in that moment, as the wind moved gently around them and the sun came out from behind the clouds, something began to shift in Aubrey's heart. It was small, like a spark, but it was real. For the first time in a long time, she believed that her life could change, that maybe, just maybe, speaking English was not something far away. Maybe it was right here, in her mouth, just waiting for the first word to come out, and she was ready to say it. Brielle sat with Aubrey on the small bench near the library. The sun was warm, but Aubrey's heart was cold with fear. She had failed so many times. Every job she tried to get, she lost the chance because she didn't know how to start speaking. Her mouth would dry up, her words would disappear. It felt like her tongue forgot how to move. But Brielle didn't look down on her. She spoke gently, with a voice full of care and calm. She said, "You don't need to know big words. You don't need to speak fast. Just start with 1 sentence. That's enough." Aubrey looked at her with curious eyes. "1 sentence?" she whispered. "Yes," Brielle nodded. And I'm going to give you 3 magic ones. She pulled out a small notepad from her bag. On a clean white page, she wrote, "Excuse me, can I ask something?" 2. Hi, I'm looking for work. 3. Can I help with anything here? She handed the paper to Aubrey. Aubrey looked at the words like they were golden. She didn't know why, but they felt strong, like they could open a door. She read them, softly, then again and again. "These are your keys," Brielle said, smiling. "Try 1 key at a time." That evening, Aubrey walked home slowly. She didn't have money for a bus, but she didn't care. She had something better, hope. She reached her small room, lit by only 1 weak bulb. Her little brother was asleep in the corner. She tiptoed to the cracked mirror on the wall. It was small and blurry, but it was enough. She stood in front of it and looked into her own eyes. She took a deep breath and said the first sentence. "Excuse me, can I ask something?" Her voice was very low. She barely heard herself, but she didn't stop. She said it again. "Excuse me, can I ask something?" Then the next one. "Hi, I'm looking for work." And the third, "Can I help with anything here?" At first she felt silly. She thought, I must look funny talking to a mirror. But then she remembered Brielle's words. Just 1 sentence. So she didn't give up. Every day she practiced. In the morning after waking up. In the evening before sleeping. Sometimes she whispered the sentences while walking down the street. Sometimes she spoke them a little louder while washing the dishes. Her little brother started repeating after her, copying the way she said, "Excuse me," with a smile. They laughed together. After 1 week, something changed. She no longer looked away when people walked by. She didn't hide her face. She started to feel strong, not strong like a fighter, but strong like someone who is ready to try again. One day she saw an old lady on the street, looking confused. The lady looked at a bus and then at her phone. Aubrey walked closer, nervous, but brave. She said, "Excuse me, can I help you?" The lady smiled and said, "Oh dear, yes. Do you know if this bus goes downtown?" Aubrey smiled back and said, "Yes, it does." Then she sat down quietly on the bench. Her heart was beating fast, but she was proud. That evening, she told her brother, "I spoke to someone today." "Really?" he asked with big eyes. "Yes," she said, "and she understood me." For the next few days, Aubrey tried to talk, to at least 1 person each day. She asked for the time. She asked where the market was. She asked if a shop was open. Some people smiled and answered. Some didn't. But Aubrey kept going. Every sentence she spoke gave her a little more power. Then, one morning, she saw a bakery with a help wanted sign. Her heart raced. She walked back and forth in front of it 3 times. She wanted to walk away. She almost did. But then she remembered the magic sentence. "Hi, I'm looking for work." She walked in slowly. The smell of fresh bread filled the air. A man behind the counter looked up. "Hi," she said, her voice shaking a bit. "I'm looking for work." The man smiled. "Do you have experience?" She paused. "No," she said honestly. "But I can help with anything here." There. The 3rd sentence. The man looked at her for a moment. Then he said, "We need someone to clean the tables and wash dishes. Can you start tomorrow?" Aubrey felt like crying, but she smiled. "Yes," she said. That night she bought a small loaf of bread for her and her brother. It was soft and warm. They ate together with joy. The job didn't pay much, but it paid enough. Enough to buy food. Enough to buy a second-hand book about English. Enough to believe in tomorrow. She told Brielle everything. Brielle hugged her tightly and said, "You did it." Aubrey replied, "No, we did it." From that day, she made a rule. She would speak one new sentence in English every day, just one. Sometimes it was, "How was your day?" Sometimes it was, "I'm learning English." And slowly, her world began to grow. She wasn't just talking. She was connecting. She wasn't just learning. She was living. And the more she spoke, the more doors began to open. One day, the bakery owner asked her if she wanted to try serving customers at the front. "Your English is getting better," he said. Aubrey looked around. The place was full of people. It was scary, but she took a breath. "Okay," she said. "I can try." One cold morning, Aubrey walked through the streets with an empty stomach. Her shoes had holes and her sweater was thin. The cold wind made her body shake, but she kept walking. She had no money, no food, only a small hope inside her heart. She looked around and saw a little bakery on the corner. The smell of fresh bread and sweet cookies came from the door. It made her stomach growl. She stopped. Her hands were in her pockets. Her eyes looked at the door, then at the ground. She was nervous. "What if they laugh at me?" she thought. "What if I say the wrong thing?" But then a memory came back. Brielle's kind voice saying, "You don't need perfect English. Just start the conversation." Aubrey took a deep breath. She walked to the bakery door. She opened it slowly and stepped inside. The warm smell hugged her. There were people sitting and drinking coffee. Some were eating muffins. Everyone looked so happy. Aubrey walked to the counter. Her heart was beating fast. Her hands were shaking. But she smiled and said in a soft voice, "Hi, I'm looking for work. I can help with anything." The man behind the counter looked at her. He had kind eyes and a calm face. He was the shop manager. He didn't look angry. He didn't look busy. He just smiled and said, "What's your name?" Aubrey was surprised. No one had asked her that for a job before. She said, "My name is Aubrey." The man nodded. He looked at her clothes. He could see she was not doing well. But he also saw something special, hope in her eyes and strength in her voice. He said, "Can you start tomorrow?" Aubrey thought maybe she didn't hear him right. She asked, "Sorry?" He smiled again. "Yes. You can start tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. We need someone to help clean the tables and pack the bread." Aubrey's eyes filled with tears. She didn't know what to say. She just nodded and said, "Thank you. Thank you so much." She walked out of the bakery with a smile so big it almost hurt her cheeks. Her feet were still cold, but her heart was warm. She looked up at the sky and whispered, "I did it." That evening, she had $10 in her hand, which she had, received as a small advance for her first shift. She went to a food stall and bought 2 warm sandwiches, one for her, one for her little brother. When she gave the sandwich to her brother, he smiled with his eyes full of light. They both sat on the floor and ate slowly. Every bite was soft and full of joy. It was the best meal Aubrey had in many months. She could not stop smiling, not because she had food, but because now she had a chance. The next morning she woke up early. She wore her cleanest clothes and tied her hair neatly. She looked in the mirror and practiced one more time. "Good morning. My name is Aubrey. I'm here to work." She walked to the bakery. This time, she wasn't nervous. She greeted the manager, who introduced her to the rest of the team. There was Mia, who made the coffee, Claire, who baked the bread, and Ava, who packed the cakes. They were kind. They helped Aubrey learn how to carry trays and wipe tables. They even taught her the names of different pastries: croissant, muffin, cinnamon roll. Aubrey repeated the words slowly, carefully. Customers came in and said, "Good morning." Aubrey answered with a smile. "Good morning. How can I help you?" Every word she spoke made her feel stronger. Her voice grew more confident each day. Sometimes she made small mistakes. She said bread instead of bun, or please 2 times in one sentence. But no one laughed. They smiled, because they saw her trying. After work, she would sit with Mia and practice short sentences. "How's your day?" "Would you like coffee or tea?" "Take care and see you again," Mia told her. "You're doing great. Just keep talking." Aubrey started writing new words in a small notebook she carried in her pocket. Each word was like a key to a new world. She would whisper the words to herself as she cleaned tables or packed cookies. And then something beautiful happened. One afternoon, a young woman came into the shop. She looked shy and scared. Her clothes were old, and her eyes were tired. She walked up to the counter and said in a quiet voice, I look for work." The manager was busy in the back. Aubrey saw the girl and walked up to her. She smiled and said, "It's okay. You don't need perfect English. Just start the conversation." The girl looked at her, surprised. Her eyes opened wide. And slowly she smiled, too. Aubrey gave her a cookie from the sample tray. She said, "Wait here. I will call the manager." As she walked away, Aubrey felt something new inside. Pride. She had started at the bottom, scared, hungry, silent. Now, she was helping others find their voice. That night, after her shift, she sat on her bed and looked at her little brother sleeping. She smiled. She had money to buy food. She had friends. She had English. And most importantly, she had confidence. She opened her notebook and wrote, "English is not just a language, it is a bridge. I crossed it, and now I can help others cross too." Her journey wasn't over yet. She still had more to learn, more to speak. But one thing was sure. She was no longer silent. Aubrey worked hard every single day in the bakery. She would wake up early, tie her hair back neatly, and wear her little apron with pride. At first, she didn't speak much. She simply smiled at customers and followed instructions. But each day brought her something new, a word, a phrase, or a smile in return. Slowly, her fear began to fade. When someone said, "Good morning," she said it back. When someone asked, "How much is this cake?" she answered. And when someone said, "You have a lovely smile," she smiled even wider and said, "Thank you so much." The bakery was small, but full of warm smells and kind people. The manager, Mr. Lawson, noticed her progress. One day he said, "Aubrey, you've become our sunshine. Customers love you." She blushed and said, "I'm just trying to speak more." He nodded and replied, "And you're doing a great job." Aubrey started writing new words in a small notebook, words she heard at work, words she didn't understand. She would look them up at night with the help of an old second-hand English dictionary Brielle had gifted her. Her world was getting bigger, brighter, and full of meaning. English was no longer a wall. It had become a door, and she had learned to turn the key. One afternoon, a little girl came into the shop with her mother. The girl dropped her toy, and Aubrey bent down, picked it up, and said, "Here you go, sweetheart." The mother smiled and said, "You speak so kindly." That moment made Aubrey's heart feel full. Just one simple sentence had made someone's day better, and that meant everything. As the months passed, Aubrey saved some money. Not much, but enough to buy simple gifts for her family. Warm bread, a blanket for her brother, and a new pair of shoes for herself. She didn't feel ashamed anymore. She was proud. Proud of her work. Proud of her voice. Proud of the steps she took, even if they were small. Sometimes she would walk past the same bench where she had met Brielle. She often sat there for a moment, thinking about how one kind person, one smile, and a few simple words had changed her life. "Hi, are you okay?" Those words still echoed in her memory like a soft song. Now Aubrey had something new in her heart, a strong wish to help others like her. People who were shy, people who were afraid to speak, people who didn't believe in themselves yet. One day she saw a girl standing quietly in front of the bakery. She looked nervous and unsure. Aubrey stepped outside and smiled at her. "Hey," she said. "You're looking for something?" The girl said, "I don't speak English well." Aubrey's eyes softened. She stepped closer and replied, "It's okay. I didn't either." The girl looked surprised. "Really?" "Yes," Aubrey said, "but someone helped me, and I can help you." She gave her the same 3 magic sentences Brielle once gave her. "Excuse me, can I ask something?" "Hi, I'm looking for work." "Can I help with anything here?" The girl repeated them slowly. Aubrey smiled and told her to practice a little every day. Just a few words, just a few tries, just a little courage. "You don't need perfect English," she said. "Just start the conversation." That girl came back the next week, and the week after that. Each time she spoke a little more, a little louder, a little better. Aubrey saw herself in that girl, and it made her happy. Over time, more shy people came to the bakery, not just for cookies, but for help, for hope, and for someone who understood their struggle. Aubrey listened to all of them. She told them her story. She made them laugh. She taught them new words. She even started a little word of the day, board at the counter. The bakery slowly became more than a place for bread. It became a place for confidence, smiles, and second chances. And Aubrey? She became more than a worker. She became a helper, a teacher, a friend. At night, she would sit by her window and look at the stars. She thought about the day she had no food, no words, and no job. She thought about how she felt like nothing. And now, she wasn't just someone with a job. She was someone who gave others the courage to try. She whispered to herself, "It started with just one sentence." So if you're reading this, or listening right now and you feel scared to speak, remember this. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need big words. You just need to start. A small hello can open big doors. A small question can build a big future. Aubrey didn't become famous. She didn't become rich. But she changed lives, starting with her own. And now she helps others find their voice too. If this story gave you hope, please like, comment, and share it. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more easy and real stories that help you speak English. Your first sentence can change your life. Start today.